Hi, my name is Gudrun from GE Designs, and today I have a great tutorial for you for this fun little table runner called the Orphan Cake Runner. All you need to do this is 5 layer cake squares or 10-inch squares and 1/4 yard of fabric for your binding, a 1/3 yard of fabric for your backing. We're going to be doing this with the quilt as you go method so it goes together really quickly and easily. To cut out the layer cake squares, we're going to use my Stripology ruler, which has the 10-inch square already marked on it, so it makes things super quick and easy. And just to prove it, let's start the timer to see how long it takes me to make this from start to finish. To cut my squares, I have them stacked up, so 5 different squares, and I chose these holiday fabrics because I want to have this runner ready to go straight onto my table before the holidays. I lay all the squares on my cutting mat and then the ruler right on top, centering that white 10-inch rectangle kind of on the squares because you want to cut off these pinked edges. If your layer cakes came in a pack from the manufacturer, they always have the pinked edges and they're not 100% 10 inches, so we want to kind of make them all the same. And of course, you can cut your own from your scraps as well, and the ruler makes it really quick this way. So now we have the squares all ready in 10 inches, and now we're going to cut our little wedge shapes. And that we're going to still use a ruler. Those don't have to be 100% accurate. So we're just going to line that bottom left corner of the cake with a 0 slit on the bottom, and then we're just going to turn the ruler a little bit until that top right corner hits the 8-inch mark right there. We're going to take our cutter, go right into this 2-inch slit and make our cut right across there. Going to turn the ruler back to where it started, and now we're going to turn it the other way. Keep that lower right corner on the 10-inch and then twist it until it reaches the 2-inch mark on the top left corner. Going into our 8-inch slit and making our cut. Here we have our 3 different wedge shapes. We're going to call them A, B, and C. So each one has 5 different fabrics, and just to make things easier for when we get to our sewing machine, I like to lay them out in the order they're going to be in the runner beforehand, because then everything is organized and goes much faster. So we're just going to start with an A piece on the end. I don't want to start with the red. We're going to start with this one. I'm going to do the red next. So A, B, and then a C piece. And then the next order, we're not going to do A, B, C again. We're going to actually turn it around to do A, B, C, C, B, A. So the next piece is going to be C, just turned, because we want to make sure that straight cut edge comes together with another straight edge. And then we take a B, and then an A. And then we do an A again, A, B, C. We'll alternate it that way. So that's how these come together. Let's see, this is the wrong way. Something was up. There. And the last 3, we are going to turn it, and they are all set. And now we're going to just stack them up in the order they're going to be, like this, so we can have them ready to go right next to our machine. So that's the cutting for the layer cakes. I have my binding. I chose this green kind of fun stripe for my binding, so I'm going to use my ruler for that. Line up the folds, both of the folds on the horizontal lines of the ruler. And then because I want to cut this binding 2.5 inches, so I'm going to use the little squares on the ruler. So no math involved, just look for my squares and I make my cuts. I need 3 strips for binding. So those are ready to go. The only other prep work I need, because this is going to be quilt as you go, we need to prep our backing and batting. So I had my backing already pressed to my batting. What I like to use for quilt as you go is this fusible batting by Bozo, and I love the light fusible for runners because it's very lightweight, but it gives you a little bit of weight for detailing. And this comes, you can get it as 1 yard in a pack or off the bolt, so it's very easy to cut it to shape. I love it because it's just fusible on one side, so you just take it to your iron and press the fabric to your batting and you're ready to go. These lines I have to draw on the batting are 10 inches apart, and I just wanted to show you how I did those really fast using my Strapology ruler. They need to be 10 inches apart because our layer cakes are 10 inches. So I laid my ruler on my batting with the 0 and the 10 kind of centered, and then I just use a little pen to go into the slits at the top and the bottom, and I made just little markings on those and kind of moved my ruler down and made those marks. And then I took a longer ruler and laid on and drew the lines. So here they are, ready to go, and next step is just take it to the machine and get this baby sewn up. All right, now we're at the sewing machine. Just make sure that you have your walking foot on your sewing machine because we're going to be sewing through the backing and batting, so that's going to be the most helpful. Also, make sure that your bobbin thread kind of matches or blends well with your backing, because that's all the seams are going to be shown on the back. So we have our stack all organized from when we cut. We're just going to take our first piece and lay that right side up, and we're going to line it along the bottom and top line, so right between, so the edges should be straight right here. Our next piece is going to be going in like this, so we're going to flip that right over the top, aligning the raw edges. And because these are angled edges, we're going to just have that little piece stick out from on the top here of the top piece, and pop a couple of pins in here to hold it in place. And with this project, our 1/4 inch seam is not really that important. Most times it is, but with this one is not a big deal, so we don't really have to worry about that. We just roll up the rest of our batting right like this, pop this under our machine. So I like to take a couple of stitches kind of in the same spot before I start sewing, and I remove my pins before I sew over them. And same thing at the bottom, I take a couple stitches in the same spot to lock in those threads. And then I just press this out. I just like to finger press with something so simple. And then ready to add the next piece. This piece goes in like this. So flip that over the top, make that little tip stick out from the bottom. Couple of pins. And here's a little tip: if you have a machine or your walking foot doesn't seem to be working quite as well, if you feel like your top fabric is sliding, just use more pins. That usually takes care of it. Just remember to remove them before you sew over them. All right, we have our last piece in. So now what I'm going to do is just give this a little press with my iron, and then I'm going to line up my ruler on the outside of the whole piece and cut it all up into shape so it's ready for binding. I'll meet you back here. Well, now we have it all pressed and cut out. I also went ahead and pieced my 3 binding strips together diagonally and pressed it together, just a double fold binding. And I'm going to show you, I sometimes when I like to do something fast, I sew my binding on the back, flip it to the front, and then I zigzag it with a tiny zigzag stitch on the front. It works great for me when I have a deadline and I need to get things done for a book project, or sometimes when I'm making a quilt for, like, say, a kid that I know that it's going to be kind of rumpled a lot, and that binding is going to stay better than a hand-sewn binding. So I'm going to show you this because I want to get this on my table. I flip this over, find the end of the binding, and lay it out. I just want to make sure that my intersections or seams are not going to hit on a corner. Like here, this is going to hit on a corner, so I want to pull it over a little bit so it hits at the long edge of the runner. And then I'm ready to stitch. I loaded my top thread with my favorite Orphan matching thread that matches your binding. And I'm going to start sewing, leave a little bit of a tail, so about 8 inches of tail here. And I'm just going to sew all the way around. When I come to the corner, I stop about a 1/4 inch from the corner. I lift this up and turn my runner and do the same folding technique as if you were doing from the top. So fold it away and back down. Slide it back under. Sew all the way from the top. So we're going to stop about 12 inches, 10 to 12 inches from where we started. So we have 2 big tails. And then we're going to put these together. I need to grab my scissors. And I just trim this end straight like this. And then I grab a ruler and then make sure I line the edge of the ruler up with that end. I lay the other end over the top, and I want to overlay it by 2.5 inches because our binding is 2.5 inches. So that's where I make my cut. And to diagonally piece those, you open them up like this, and then you fold them together corner to corner like this. Pin the corners so they don't move. I pin it on each side. And we're going to sew diagonally from this corner, diagonally across to this corner. And you can draw that with a pen if you want to. I have this little line on the bottom of my sewing machine, my Clearly Perfect angle, so I don't have to draw anything. So I'm just going to stitch this up. Once I have it stitched, I trim the seam allowance to about 1/4 inch. I try and press this seam apart, so we're going to minimize bulk. So I just finger press that, because that's hard to get into there with an iron, actual iron. I finger press it, and then I lay it back down. And then I like to take it to my iron to give it a little bit of press, so hold on tight. I'm going to get that done. Once I have that done, I put it back right under and I finish my seam all the way around. So now we have it bound all the way around. Taking it back to my iron, I'm going to press these out, press it all the way out, and then I'm going to show you how I flip it to the front and top stitch it down, and then the runner is ready. So I meet you back here. So now I have the binding pressed outwards, and I kind of folded it over to the front and did a little press job on all the sides. I went ahead and folded that first corner and put a pin in it. And then I have my machine set to a zigzag stitch, and I just increased I had my stitch length at 2, and then I decreased the width down to 1. So it's really a very narrow zigzag. Make sure that the top thread matches your binding. And then I'm just gonna go right into the edge of the binding here and zigzag it down. All right, we have it all sewn on. Now let's check our timer. 39 minutes, 40 minutes for a quick little project. How fun. Now, if you want to try this binding, I totally recommend it. If you look at it closely, I mean, it's not as perfect as if we would have done this by hand, but if you look at it closely, it's pretty neat. And it just works great when you need to get something done fast. Thanks for joining me. I hope you try these out at home.